And I want to thank all of you for coming out this morning, because I know it might be difficult for some of you. But what we're going to talk about is really important. Mobile is huge. You all know it. It's not the year of the mobile. Mobile's already here. And what I'm talking about is something that could really impact your business. So I'll show you what we're going to be talking about. First, I want to outline the difference between mobile and web in terms of lead generation. And this is what I think is the biggest opportunity this year. In mobile, app installs, premium SMS, these advertisers know what they're doing, but the lead gen advertisers, I feel like, are way behind adapting to the mobile channel. So I'm going to talk about the difference, and then I'm going to talk about types of mobile lead generation, and then I'm outline some best practices. These are, for some of you, seem simple, but if you don't execute these properly, you're just throwing money down the drain. So I want to make sure that you guys understand what's important. Another thing that's really important about mobile is the tracking and analytics component of it. Next, I'm going to talk about how to gain distribution. At the end of the day, if you're a lead gen advertiser, you don't have to know every single way to gain mobile traffic. There's partners and there's ways to do it very cost effectively. And here's another thing that's really important, with me at least. If you have a question at any point, I'd rather you ask it now. We'll have a question and answer section, but if something's unclear or you want to get more detail on anything I outlined today, just straight up ask. So why does mobile matter? So if you look at the US population, smartphone adoption is going through the roof. Obviously iPhone, Android, Windows phones, it's really picking up. 141 minutes per day is spent on a mobile device. And this is affecting all media. Everyone used to say people are glued to their TVs, but really there's no more intimate device than your phone. It's in your pocket. Like even now when it's out of my pocket, I feel very, uncomfortable, and I'm sure it's for a lot of people. So you got to keep in mind it's a different type of media, and it's very effective. Let's look at Facebook. They reported in their last report that 50% of the revenue came from the mobile side. Now Facebook is massive, you all know that, and you should understand that if Facebook is saying that 50% of their money is coming from mobile, you have to start taking it serious. Another interesting statistic for some of you who may be mailers is that 48% of emails on mobile are open on mobile devices. I mean, this is huge. In our industry, there's a lot of mailers, and they don't think about it at all. They're treating it the same as it's always been, and not understanding that if you send a mobile or a lead gen form to a mobile user, they're going to have a hard time filling out that form. So you're missing on the opportunity to convert that user. So let's talk about the differences of mobile versus web lead gen. 41% of mobile users access device while they're in store or making a purchase consideration. Okay, this is also something very different from traditional. You don't go to your store with your computer, but you do with your phone. So a phone is a great opportunity to catch someone right as they're about to make the purchase. Mobile searches for contractors and construction grew 68% year over year to 37% of total searches on YP local ad network, which is basically Yellow Pages. Again, this is an indication that even old school traditional platforms like Yellow Pages, we all know them, you get that giant book and it has all different numbers on there, even they acknowledge that it's all going mobile. Mobile users use device earlier in the sales funnel. Again, when someone's doing hardcore research on a subject, they'll use a computer because you could type easier, you could open multiple browser windows, but guess what? If I want to buy something, literally I'll go to a store and I'll pull up that item just to see that the price is right. Shorter consideration set due to information access. Another very important thing about mobile is that because you have so much access to information, your consideration sets get shorter. When you make a purchase decision, if you have a mobile device in your pocket, you're going to do it much quicker than when you have to do research on the computer. I'll actually talk about this in detail later, but sense of urgency, emergency. I'll give you a simple example. If I get in a car accident, I'm going to use my phone to find a lawyer, right? If like it's a car accident, I need a lawyer. If I think it's one of these situations. And the phone is very accessible no matter what. So a lot of verticals and a lot of offers that people think traditionally may not have worked for mobile, they do. If you just remember that sometimes you don't have an option other than your phone. So here's another slide about the creatives and landing pages. A lot of partners we've worked with, it takes time to make them understand that a mobile user is going to be very different than what they currently have. You can't take your current offer, your landing page, your campaign, and expect it to render properly. Like, this picture is just a great example. If you look at this picture on your left, very simple, gets right to the point, and very effective. If you look at the website on the right, would you want to navigate that? Probably not. You have to zoom and pinch and look for exactly what you're looking for, and it's not going to work as well as the mobile optimized page. Okay, so this chart's a little interesting, but I wanted to kind of go through it to explain how you could get mobile distribution. Again, if you have any questions, please ask. But mobile is no different than any other traffic source you work with. It's not a new thing. Mobile is overtaking everything. As I mentioned, Facebook, email, display. This is an example of what we do with mobile display. And literally, what we have to do is test different creative, just like any other channel. We have to optimize the banners. We have to optimize the landing pages. We have to optimize the placements. But there's something very unique about mobile that gives you an opportunity you don't have in other channels. For example, how many of you, when you run a mobile or a web campaign, care about things like browser? Anybody? No, that's not something you look at. In mobile, you do have to look at it. You have to look at the browser, you have to look at the carrier, you have to look at the handset. An Android user, wait, actually I just want to know, just because it always cracks me up in this kind of setting. How many of you have iPhones? Just raise your hands, please. Okay, most of the room. But guess what? Android has 70% market share worldwide. Okay, Android's a real thing. You iPhone users are very spoiled, and you just assume everyone's an iPhone user. They're not, okay? People use different phones, but an Android user is going to be very different from an iPhone user. A Verizon user is going to be very different from a T-Mobile user. So you have to use other criteria to judge quality and performance that you typically don't do on web. Again, first I want to give you a quick overview, and I'll dive into the details of it. So what campaigns work on mobile? The truth of the matter, mobile targeting isn't effective like it is on web and other channels like social. Mobile, I want to kind of illustrate it as, imagine a ton of billboards. So you basically have access to somebody's billboard on their phone. The problem is, I know very little about that user in most cases. Okay, unlike Facebook, where I know your age and gender, unlike search, I know your intent because you searched for it. It's just real estate. It's just, placement real estate. So what works best for mobile, not saying you can't make other things work, but I'm just saying what tends to work is mass market appeal. If you grabbed 100 random people and you said, do you want to sign up for this offer? And you can find one that says yes, it's probably a good candidate. But if it's the type of offer where it's so niche, such a small market, it's going to be hard because it's going to be very hard to reach those users. Currently, mobile's super fragmented right now. There's a lot of players, and I know one of the questions that's going to come up every time it comes up, what's the one partner I go to? And I always tell them it depends, because there's literally hundreds of people in mobile that could deliver traffic. Next thing is impulsive action. This is also very important. If your offer, your lead gen offer, requires a long consideration set, it's going to be very hard to convert a mobile user. Mobile users are like gnats. They bounce around, their attention span is very small. So you need to have a strong offering that doesn't require a lot of information on their end. You want it to be very simple for them to know, okay, this looks interesting, let me enter the key information required to get that offer. One not mistake, but one folly that I see with a lot of lead gen advertisers is that what they do is they'll build the same form they use on web and maybe mobile optimize it. But do you really need to know their social security number? I mean, for some offers maybe, but in most cases, no. Don't make a user fill out more information than they have to, because it's not convenient on a phone. On a phone, it's very difficult to fill out, a 20 field form. You're going to abandon it. So the conversion rate's going to go low, and it's usually not a good idea. All right, so broad targeting. Again, as I mentioned, age, geo, gender, income. Whenever people come to me with this, I tell them, I can't get as much distribution as you'd like, if that's the case. If you prefer, let's say, females 35 to 45, and your offer naturally attracts those users, that's what you're going to get. But if you create that, that criteria, and you say, I'm only taking that, it kills my ability to give you distribution. Because literally, there's only two types of networks in mobile: ones that lie that they have that kind of targeting, and the ones that do. And the ones that do have very low volume. So keep in mind, if you have an offer that's targeted towards women, don't create this extra barrier for distribution. Just, it's going to happen. That's the gender that's attracted to that offer, they're going to sign up for it. Another thing I want to talk about, I don't know if it's as relevant for lead gen, because lead gen is very US focused, but you have to start thinking international. The prices for mobile traffic internationally are absurd. Just so cheap that it makes no sense. Penny clicks. It's kind of a huge opportunity. So if you could take your lead gen business outside of the US, even Canada, prices drop in half. Everyone wants to dominate the US, but just think international. International, there's countries where their first access to the internet is through their phone. They never owned a computer. So just think about how powerful that is. This is your first opportunity to reach someone who's never had access to what you're offering to them. The other thing I'm going to mention here, because it's kind of a difficult thing in mobile, is server-to-server tracking. We're all used to cookies, but the cookie is dying. It's dying on the web a little bit too, because of all the new regulations that came out. But server-to-server offers an opportunity to do tracking without having to worry about any privacy issues, and it still gives you the same level of data that you need to have a successful campaign. Again, anyone have any questions what server-to-server is? Okay. Okay, so what happens is, every time a user clicks on a creative, you generate a unique click ID. It's usually alphanumeric hash, and the chances of it being duplicated ever are very slim, because when you mix 12, letters and numbers, it's not going to happen. So most systems that set up to do server-to-server, that's what they do. So because there's a unique identifier for that user, I know nothing about that user in terms of their email, their name. I know nothing. I just know where they click from, what time of day, very basic information that's readily available. The user doesn't feel any privacy concerns. It stays very compliant. But by doing that, you're able to track your performance of your campaign, and you don't have to rely on cookies. Because on mobile, for example, if somebody's using an app and they convert on an app, you can't drop a cookie, because they're in an app environment. They're not in a browser environment. So it makes tracking way more accurate, 95% accurate, versus if you rely on cookies, you could lose 40% of your tracking. So whatever partners you work with, it's just going to be very hard if you're relying on outdated, iframe, image pixels, cookies. None of that stuff is going to be as effective. Types of mobile lead generation. Really, there's only two that I think work. Let me rephrase that. I don't think, I know. from experience working with a lot of different partners. The first is short forms. These are mobile optimized pages, and they're designed to capture the minimum data you need. This is very important. A simple thing like saying repeat your email, which I always see on the web, doing that on mobile will kill your conversion rates. Ask for the bare minimum data. Yes, people are going to input things wrong. It's going to happen. But if a mobile user sees 10 fields, the chance of them abandoning that page is very high. So ask only for what matters. If for you to turn that lead into a customer, all you need is phone number and name, only ask for phone number and name. The other data that's a nice to have, you could get once you get that person on the phone. There's no reason to make them fill it out on their phone, in their mobile environment, because it's going to kill your conversion rate. The next one that's the most kind of interesting, I think, is a very, growing sector, is pay-per-call. Some people have questions about how does pay-per-call work, but basically it's simple. If your business relies on a call center, there are ways to generate calls towards your call center. It stays TCPA compliant. And again, if you guys don't know what that is, it's a new regulation that came out that basically forces users to initiate the call. And that's what's great about pay-per-call. It's initiated by the user, it's very compliant, and the leads you're going to get from there tend to be of high quality because the user initiated the call. What's great about pay-per-call and mobile phones specifically is you could do something called click-to-call. So if I'm showing an ad, I could literally have an ad where the user clicks and the phone auto dials it for them. They don't have to remember the number. But pay-per-call could be distributed offline, online, it doesn't matter. But on phone specifically, it works really well. It's a very easy process for the user. And again, I'll give you an example of a pay-per-call scenario. There's an offer that does really well in the dentist space, like picture 1-800-dentist type thing. And for a while, I couldn't understand why it did so well, and then I got it. I'm out last night having fun with my friends, and somebody bumps into me while I'm drinking, like a beer, and I chip my tooth. What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go to my phone and look for a dentist, right? Like, I'm not going to go to my computer. So with pay-per-call, you have this opportunity to capture really desperate, really engaged users. So just keep in mind, again, I'll dive into it a little bit more, but it's something that's growing rapidly. And if you have any kind of call center business, you should look at it. All right, so now I'm going to hop back to the short form lead generation. And I picked this offer because I honestly, I think this is perfect for kind of a mobile campaign. Because a lot of these users aren't on Wi-Fi, they're using their carriers, load speeds are super slow. So you want to make sure that all your images, all your text are super basic, their file sizes are really low, you want that speed to be quick. Remove extraneous forms, and I'm talking about CAPTCHAs, drop downs, all these things. If you don't need them, if you don't absolutely, like for example, if you want location, I've seen advertisers that say pick your state, pick your city. Why? Ask them just to put in the zip code. Way easier. It's going to render properly on most phones, and it's the same data, right? Like you could extrapolate that zip code towards anything, right? So keep it very simple, no CAPTCHAs, no drop downs. And the other thing I want you to think about is that not everyone has a touch phone. A lot of people who build for mobile get sold by agencies. Oh, we're going to have this really cool interactive page. No. Think 1992. Or whatever. It doesn't matter. But think like the most basic, ugly web pages. Because it's going to render across more devices. And feature phones, I'm a pessimist. So when I hear 50% smartphone penetration, I also remember, oh wait, so that means 50% of people are using feature phones. Feature phones still have web browsing. And for actually this campaign, we had more success running on feature phones because there's an older demographic. Things are a little bit more difficult, and if they're going to fill out a form, they're going to be of high quality. So keep that in mind. Don't make it like touch friendly and all that, just as basic as you can. Okay, so the other thing is show the value to the user. This is kind of basic. This isn't necessarily just for mobile. But if you look at this offer, congratulations, you're approved. And they give you 3 points of why you should fill out this form. Many partners that come to us or that we work with would skip all that and just say, make people fill out this form. It's difficult. You need to give a value to the user. And again, as I mentioned, server-to-server tracking technology. All right, so let's talk about pay-per-call. Right now, the bigger player in the pay-per-call space is a company called Ring Revenue. They've literally, I want to say like a month ago, rebranded to Invoca. But at the end of the day, it's a pay-per-call tracking technology. It's actually pretty robust. What they allow you to do is have affiliate distribution, your own distribution. You could track very granularly. You could listen in on the calls. Depending on the offer, there's some in financial that you're not allowed to, but you could actually listen in and see where people are dropping off. You could create an IVR. And what an IVR is, you guys know what an IVR is? Everybody? Okay, so for those of you who don't, because I didn't see everybody nod their head, it's simple. You call in, press 1 for blah, 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 press 2 for whatever. But what it allows you to do is to pre-qualify that call. So for example, if you're running an offer in the health field and you don't accept people without insurance, no reason to send that call to your call center. You literally say, press 1 if you have insurance, press 2 if you don't. If they hit 2, you say, sorry, we don't work with people with no insurance. Your call center doesn't have to be bombarded with people who don't qualify. And again, the other thing is being able to listen in. Really important. Hearing those calls and seeing the pain points, you could adjust your call center, you could adjust your offer to meet those demands. Again, utilize mobile best practices for the landing pages. Talked about that all the time. And I've also touched upon this earlier, but the click to call is amazing. So I literally put the code that you could use. So you could have a phone number on your page, and a user could click that, it'll auto dial, well not auto dial, but it'll pop it up on their phone for them to easily dial. It's a basic HTML code, but it can make a huge difference if you're buying mobile traffic. Okay, so this is another very important to think about. Analytics and importance of mobile data. As I've mentioned before, I gave you some quick examples of how you should be tracking mobile specific data. There's a chart I used to use, but I'll just describe it so you guys understand. The difference between mobile and other channels is that other channels, all you're focusing on is the creative and the placement. So the creative could be your keywords, it could be your ad copy, it could be your landing pages. That fits under creative. And your placement, let's say it's Facebook, it's your demographics. If it's Google, it's your keywords. If it's display, it's where you're being shown. That's all you really have to worry about to make a successful campaign. If you have a combination of the two, you have opportunity to make profit. With mobile, it's a little bit different because as I've mentioned before, you have to take into consideration things like platform, device. Even the device can make a difference. Tablet, Wi-Fi versus not Wi-Fi. People who are on Wi-Fi are going to be very different users than people who are using their carriers for their internet access. So Matomy has created a product called Mobit. Fantastic product, works with server to server, integrates with a lot of the leading ad networks, but it'll give you all that data. So if you run a campaign, let's say you have a mobile lead gen form, and if you spend a few $100s on an ad network, you might think, spend a few $100, only made $50 in return. It's a dead deal. But using a technology like this, you could literally analyze and see, oh my God, Android users convert twice as much as iOS, because maybe iOS users aren't a good match for my offer. And then you could go back to your ad network or traffic channel and say, I don't want any more iPhone traffic. Just turn it off. All of a sudden you're profitable. It's really that simple. But if you do not track these things, you'll never know. So it's really important. Again, here I went over just some of the things that are very mobile specific that affect data, the operating system, Android, iOS, feature phones, Windows, carrier versus Wi-Fi, important. Device, handset, model, version, all these things make a difference. There's phones that come out where they're targeting specific demographics. So I mentioned before, no, I can't target women, 35 plus as easily, but there's phones that tend to gravitate those users, and sometimes if you look at your data, you'll see certain phones perform better. The type of phone, absolutely important. A tablet is going to be very different from a phone or iPod. And just so you know, we also see more traffic coming from wearable technology. It's still very nascent, but eventually that might be something to consider too. And then screen resolution makes a huge difference, just looking at it, because these phones are getting bigger and bigger, and the tablet phone thing are emerging, but it's going to make a difference. All right, so let's say you have a good lead generation offer that you think is appropriate for mobile. How are you going to get distribution? Mobile web display, all that is, it's the same as traditional display, but on mobile phones. So people are playing apps, banners show up, people are browsing mobile news sites, and they get banner pop-ups or interstitials. And here I just wanted to kind of outline the difference between lead generation and pay-per-call. For mobile web display, lead generation is really strong. If you have an offer that met the criteria we talked about, few fields, broad appeal, this is perfect. For pay-per-call, not as good. Just not. It's going to be much harder to make it work on display. Now, mobile in-app display, this is literally ads that are native. They could be interstitials. There's a lot of interesting formats that you could do inside an app. For lead generation, mediocre. A lot of the app traffic works great for things like other apps. So if I'm promoting other apps, it works great. For pay-per-call, just forget it. It's going to be very difficult for it to back out. Co-registration. This is obviously from the web days, but it's basically somebody creates a funnel on the front end, and they're sending users through. And as a user fills out a form, they say, well, would you like a refinance offer? Would you like a payday offer? Would you like a different kind of offer? For lead generation, this is great. For pay-per-call, it's going to be tough, because pay-per-call takes them out of that, like, yes, I'm in. Traditional search. This is search that's not done on mobile phones, on computers. Obviously, for lead generation, it's going to be weak. For pay-per-call, believe it or not weak. Because if you're promoting on traditional search, it's a phone number. Somebody might just pick up their phone and make the call. So it's mediocre. Mobile search, so search done on mobile devices, for lead generation it's mediocre, but for pay-per-call it's huge. Most of the pay-per-call traffic is coming from mobile search. So Google on devices works great because people are desperate. I'll give you another example. One of the offers that we're doing well with is a PC helpline, PC repair helpline. Now, when I first saw this offer, I was kind of skeptical. I was like, who's going to call? But then I realized, if your computer's broken, you have no option. You're going to use your phone, right? So it works. It was a great offer. And then other non-mobile traffic, again, for mobile lead generation, very weak. If you're thinking about QR codes, all these kinds of things, we've tried a bunch of them, and it's not a strong performer. And then for pay-per-call, it's also a little bit weak. And then offline, for lead generation, it almost doesn't make sense. For pay-per-call, believe it or not, it works. We've done a test recently where we bought a local circular. You see those like bins, like job boards or house or whatever. It doesn't matter. But we made a small buy in a local area, and we got really quality traffic from that. So it's another thing to think about. All right. This is the fun part, because either no one's going to ask anything, or this could be a really lively discussion. As you can tell, I'm not a big guy in presentations. I'd rather you ask me and I can answer. So I want to start it off with anybody who has any questions about mobile lead generation and how to capitalize on it.
Why is Wi-Fi easier than a network user?
I'll tell you why. When I'm on a network, it means I'm on the go. When I'm on Wi-Fi, I'm at home. That's the big differentiator. Also with Wi-Fi, we find more accidental clicks. I don't like to make assumptions, but I think it's kids. Like parents are like, here you go, play with my phone or my iPad. But that's the difference. If I'm on the go and I'm, walking to my train, I'm on my carrier.
You gotta think about that too.
Yes, absolutely. The way we do it, we always split test. I don't like to make assumptions. I like to set up a test and just see what performs better. And the other beautiful thing about it is everything has its price. Wi-Fi traffic tends to be cheaper because it's understood that for many offers, it's actually harder to convert. If someone's on the go, they're desperate and they're going to be a higher quality user.
Some people with an existing web funnel that requires a lot of conditional info, so they have to have drop-downs and stuff like that. How do you get that info?
So there's two ways to do it. If you're going to create a short form, did you have a call center on the back end?
No, but I thought about it for this.
Okay, that's a great way. A follow-up phone call, or have them initiate the call to complete that information. That could be a good way. I'm not saying that it won't work. It's just the attention span of a mobile user is very low. So it's going to be much harder to get a user to go through that process. And here's what I would do in your case. If you have a lot of conditional questions, really sit down, ask what data do you absolutely need and what data is a nice to have.
Have you seen anybody do it well? Like with the drop-down screen, anybody who's
With long form, in co-reg, we've seen it work. In co-reg, where a user signs up for something else and then you say, would you like this offer as well? We've seen it work there, but the quality of the user tends not to be as high because they may have signed up for something that's tangent but not necessarily appropriate for your business. And if you want to share more detail of what kind of vertical you're talking about, maybe I could have a little more insight.
automotive, it's conditions of the vehicle.
Okay, so for automotive, I know exactly what you're talking about. Make the process easier. With our automotive offers I see, it's like pick your make, model, year, crazy. Why don't you just type it in and autofill it for them? Typing it in is going to be way easier than having a drop down open up that takes up my whole screen. Now I'm zooming, pinching. That's how you have to think about it. Instead, just for make, they could just type in Mazda or whatever, and you can just autofill it. Just make the process as easy as possible. The goal is to not get in the way of that user filling out the form. In the back, right?
I was wondering maybe about WAP, mobile WAP, and if there's a better way to monetize it on being WAP.
Okay, so mobile WAP is just mobile sites. There's, in-app traffic and there's mobile sites. With Bing, the issue that we found is there's very little volume. Bing's always had this issue, even on traditional search, there's just not as much volume. With that being said, Bing is actually very profitable because a lot of people don't go there. But it is a challenge to scale on Bing. The consideration of what I discussed earlier is exactly the same. You still want to keep things simple, light, fast, easy to use for the user. And with Bing, in general, we have a higher proportion of getting things profitable, but we can never deliver the same kinds of volume that we could do on Google.
All questions need to be done at the microphone, which is recorded.
All right, sorry.
I was just wondering what your experience was with offers where you can either offer a mobile optimized form or a click to call, like what percentage of people call versus fill out the form and how that might differ on search versus display.
Okay, so in that case, if you have the opportunity to offer both, I would offer both always. It's just going to depend on the user and it's going to depend on the offer. If the offer is something where I have a question, like some offers are very basic. Like the example I showed was NetSpend. It's a prepaid card, it's a green dot, there's a million of them. People are going to fill out the form. But if it's something that requires like a question, like legal, you may want to get on the phone more. So I would always offer both. if you have that opportunity. If you have a call center available and you just want to capture the lead, basically the way I would structure that offer is call us now or fill out your information and we'll call you later. Give them the option, because again, if I'm going to go, I'm on the subway or, going down to the subway, I don't want to be called right now, but I may want to be called later.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, when building my offer, demographics is very important. Who's got the best up-to-date graphics of who's the carrier, how many users, it's iOS or Android? I mean, where do you go to get all that research?
Honestly, Google. You just type it in. There's a lot of good companies out there. There's Moby Thinking. There's, ClickZ launches reports. A lot of analytics companies, Flurry, Millennial, they all launch reports based on their activity. So, for example, Millennial is an ad network. Again, I recommend checking them out as well. But they'll show you based on where they're getting volume, what the distribution looks like. I wouldn't focus too much on it, and the reason being, let the data tell you what to do. So when you buy the media, you may think logically Verizon users is what I want, but guess what? Maybe they don't convert for you. So just let the data tell you what the best targeting is. What we found in this is affiliate marketing, but it's also a performance-based business. What we found with performance is that when people overthink their strategy, they actually kind of tie their hands behind their back. You have to let the data talk to you. Buy broad and just see where the opportunities are, as opposed to being really regimented and thinking this is going to work, this is going to work. You just don't know. You don't know. With all the assumptions, you just don't know.
What have you found to be the characteristics of tablet users versus desktop or mobile? I mean, do they act more like a mobile user when it comes to display and co-reg responsiveness?
I actually think tablet is closer to date than phones. They're closer to date to computers or laptops, whatever. That's how they interact. The tablet traffic, I'm going to give you a tip right now. The big thing that happens with tablet, kids. Kids will destroy a campaign. No, they will, because they're just clicking all day. They don't know what they're clicking, and you're paying for the clicks or the impressions. So the way to manage that is to pay attention to where your ads are shown. For example, Talking Tom is one of the biggest apps out there. Do not buy from Talking Tom, ever. It's just kids. It's a literally app for kids with the cat you click on and the cat talks to you. Like, no adults using this. It's just kids. So when a lot of people said, there's fat finger clicks and accidental clicks, they happen. They're part of the business. You're not going to stop it. Your goal is to minimize that. So if your ads are being shown on Talking Tom and a lot of your impressions are going there, it's going to hurt your campaign.
How does a solution like Mobit differentiate from Google Analytics?
Sure. So Mobit is a media buying solution, while Google Analytics is more geared for just all the incoming traffic. Frankly, I'd use both. But Mobit is set up that when you're buying traffic from different ad networks, you gather data on the click level, and you gather performance data on creatives and all this other stuff. Can you do it in Google? It's not going to be as convenient, honestly. And Google doesn't do one thing that Mobit absolutely does. Actually, two things. First, Google Analytics won't post conversion data to your partner, to your ad network, because you need that, right? So if you're working with a partner where they say they could help you optimize in the back end, they need to see what's converting for you for them to have that ability. And the second is Mobit came out with a feature called campaign suggestion. It's like an auto optimizer where it looks at all these metrics we talked about, carrier, handset. With one click of a button, it just calculates which combinations of these targetings are yielding you the highest ROI. So you don't have to manually sit there and run a carrier report, device report. It'll just look at all of it and just tell you these things are the things that are going to make you the most money.
how useful do you think it is to look down to the individual device level? And then how do you kind of keep up with just all the new devices that are coming out, and the Galaxy S4 or whatever they're on now may be the premium phone now, but 18 months from now it might be the freebie that they're giving to entry level, people that may not have a lot of money.
So there's two ways we manage that. First, I'll admit mobile moves fast. Okay, so when you're speaking 18 months, in 18 months, God knows what's going to come out. We have Pebble, we have Google Glass. I think I saw someone wearing one. But, there's a lot of cool stuff coming out all the time. The thing about it is there's always something that dominates the market. Galaxy S3 and S4 dominate the market. When we look at our traffic that's coming in, they're huge. They're like 30-40%. So you don't have to worry about all the devices. You just have to worry about the main ones. And at any given point, there's going to be 5 to 10 players that you should worry about. So it's not, people get overwhelmed sometimes. They find this weird phone that's making money, and I tell them ignore it. There's no volume. Like, not enough people have it. For example, Windows phones, and again, another tip, Windows phones, very small market share. But because everybody ignores them, very profitable. So it's cheap traffic and it works. But the thing is, it's not scalable. Like you're just never going to get the same distribution that you would targeting iOS, feature phones, or Android. No more questions? Oh, here we go.
You mentioned using IVR for pre-qualifying calls. Is that something that's built into Invoca, or are you using some other tool? Okay.
It is. You can do a lot of cool things on pay-per-call. I'll tell you kind of the challenges of pay-per-call and some solutions. So one of the challenges in pay-per-call back in the day is you could only generate a finite number of numbers to track your campaign. So let's say I'm doing something like Google search, and I have like 10 ad groups. I generate 10 phone numbers. I only know the performance of the ad group level. What Ring Revenue does is something called ring pools, which dynamically change the number on the landing page. It doesn't work if your number's in the creative, but if it's on the landing page, it changes it dynamically and gives it a certain amount of time that call is valid. So they might be rotating 150 numbers, but it gives you keyword level tracking, which is really the key if you're doing search and pay-per-call. The other challenge is time, like call centers and the times they're available and the states they could go from. So the other thing you could do is called bundling. What bundling lets you do is take multiple offers or multiple advertisers and create like pretty much your own custom offer where you'll work with, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say lawyers, let's say you have a partner, they only take California. You have another partner who takes Florida, the other one might be nationwide. But the California and Florida partner are paying way more. You could create one offer out of there and using your IVR, if you're in California, press 1. Like you could still manage all those partnerships without having to treat them as separate campaigns. So you just have one nationwide legal offer, but you're still working with many partners on the back end. Invoca. Invoca used to be called Ring Revenue. And I like what they're doing, and they're just, for some reason, maybe they were the first or whatever, or ease of use, just nowadays, a lot of partners we approach, they're just using Invoca.
You talked about the example with the dentist, and that makes sense, but when it comes to retail, do you think it's worth investing in a mobile campaign for something like Deal of the Day or same-day shipping, because that gives a sense of emergency?
Yes, absolutely. The company I would follow, what they're doing is Groupon. I know Groupon's not like the sexy company right now, but what they're doing in mobile is very interesting. So I would just kind of mimic what they're doing. They have an app, they have like mobile optimized page. If you look at the numbers of e-commerce transactions that happen year over year around Christmas on mobile devices, it's skyrocketing. People feel much more comfortable with Amazon, a couple clicks, I bought this product. So if it's not part of your strategy, you're just missing out on a huge marketplace that could be a good opportunity.
interested in hearing a little bit more information on how you set up server-to-server tracking, if there's any specific tools, or if that's something, any proprietary information that you have along those lines.
It's nothing proprietary. It's if you have an okay coder, doesn't have to be a great coder, like he'll figure out how to do it. Basically, that parameter I talked about, that unique hash, gets passed in the URL. And the easiest way I could describe it without getting into coding is you just grab that parameter. Throughout the funnel, you have to remember that parameter. And when there's a converting event, it literally just pings the other server, which is what's beautiful about it. There's no cookies, there's nothing relying on browser. It just literally keeps that value, user converts, pings the server, the original server, whatever network you're working with, whoever. And what's cool about server to server too is you can do piggyback pixels much easier. You don't have to like put a bunch of code and do the landing page, which sometimes slows it down too, which I don't like. As I mentioned before, but speed kills more ways than one, you know. But in mobile specifically, speed kills. If your site isn't loading as fast as possible, you're going to be missing out on conversions. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, yep, here we go. Well, I just wanted to put out my numbers so you guys have it. My email, feel free to jot it down. I'm always more than willing to help anybody when it comes to mobile. My goal is for mobile to grow. That's really my incentive. This isn't my first affiliate summit show talking about mobile. Maybe not the last, I don't know, we'll see. Depending if you guys review me well. But at the end of the day, my goal is to grow the mobile industry. And I think the biggest, I used to just talk about mobile in general. I'm talking about lead gen because I think the first movers who capitalize are going to really see their businesses be impacted. So mobile lead gen is, to me, the biggest opportunity in mobile right now. It's not apps. There's a lot of people doing cool stuff in apps. It's not any of the other offers out there. It's if you could be the company to capitalize on lead generation in mobile, you win.
Do you blog or anything, or?
I used to, I don't anymore. And just one more note, if you have traffic coming in already, check how much of it is mobile. And I almost guarantee it's going to be 20–30% mobile. And look at the conversion rate of the mobile user versus non, and it'll be lower. Your goal is to make that the same, you know. It's just money on the table. Cool. All right, well, thank you so much for your time.